Good morning. How is that? Do you have volume now? Yay! Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'm going to start over. Hi, Feast. I love my friends at Feast. Great school and great team. Okay. Um, I'm just going to start over here, but what I was saying was, this is our fifth grade coaching session, and we're working on realistic fiction. This will be a short coaching session because we're just going to go over this one unit of study that starts January 13th and runs through January 31st. Probably one of our favorite units of study, maybe one of yours too, just because it's realistic fiction and we know the kids enjoy reading these kinds of texts. And before we get started, I wanted to give you a quote from C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Narnia series. And he said, "We read to know that we are not alone." And I think that's what realistic fiction embodies, that there are these quote unquote real characters in books leading real lives and having similar trials and tribulations that we do. So we give our kids, and as we read realistic fiction, us something to relate to. Okay, so I'm going to go on here with top 5 things to know about the realistic fiction unit of study. And the first thing that you're going to start with in this unit, as usual with the other units, are characteristics. What makes realistic fiction realistic fiction? And I think sometimes kids might get confused with all the different kinds of fiction because there's also fiction that's not real, our fantasy and our folk tale, things like that. So with realistic fiction, we want them to have the idea that these characters are make believe. They're they're not real. However, things that happen in this genre could happen in real life. Okay, things that might happen to you and me. So a couple biggies here are imaginary characters behave in realistic ways. They have real world challenges that they have to face. They usually have a problem. There are detailed descriptions of characters and settings and the problems in these texts. Setting is important to the plot. The main problem in the story is what drives the plot, keeps it moving forward. And these texts are usually written in a problem solution format. So they know these characters are usually going to face some sort of real world problem that could really happen to you and me. And usually they're going to somehow solve that problem at the end of the book. So those are some characteristics that you'll just start charting as you notice these things about realistic fiction. Um, Also, you're going to work on identifying the author's message, because there usually is one in realistic fiction. Craft stories in ways to get us hooked in, and so that we can relate to the character. Okay, if we can't really relate to the character, we might not get hooked into the story, and then we're going to abandon the book and put it down. So that's the author's job, is to really get us going with the text. Also, you're going to be looking at characters' internal tension and how authors often craft these characters as complex. They're not just your average Joe kind of walking through life with a nonchalant attitude. They might act a certain way, but yet they might act in a way that doesn't jive with how the author has described them. So they're quite complex. And as you talk about characters, you see these little red asterisks I have here. If you look in the top right corner of your screen, you're going to see some resources. And the first one is a character. They're graphic organizers, and the first one has several graphic organizers for characters, and not just describing characters, but again, thinking deeply about them and how um, they contribute to the story, and different kinds of characters, not just the main character, but also that character's counterpart. Usually there's a foil or a character that's opposite that gives a contrast to the main character. Um, the next thing you're going to do, as you've been doing all year, is a lot of think aloud and demonstration with your text. So you want to take time to, when you're reading text aloud to your students, pause and do some things like visualizing. Visualizing is wonderful with realistic fiction because you can really take a character and show your students how, I'm closing my eyes and I'm looking at the character in this text, and here's what I think she looks like, and here's what she's feeling, and I've felt like that before. So you're really taking time to get into the character and also the setting as well. Do some enacting, kind of make it very um, engaging for your students. Show them that you're really getting into this story by thinking about the characters and problems in all different ways that you can. Also take time to predict. That's one of the wonderful things about reading realistic fiction, is that the author is always trying to get us to hang on for the next page or the next chapter, and make some logical predictions about what might happen to that character. Again, there are some graphic organizers up here with inferring and predicting. So you're going to want to work a lot on that, and really, like the next bullet says, using evidence. Okay, so if you think that, why do you think that? Where can you show me in the text that that proves your inference, that makes your inference logical? Um, Also, put yourself in the character's shoes. And like I said before, I think that's really important for kids to understand that that's why realistic fiction is written, because it's all part of the human experience. And we want to read, again, to know that we're not alone. We're not the only, I'm thinking Bridge to Terabithia, where the main character's friend passes away. We've all had, you might have had things like that happen. So we want to know that other the characters, it's a kind of therapy, I guess, for students and for ourselves as well. So make sure you share that with your kids. And then also use some thinking stems when you're thinking about. We know character analysis is a biggie on STAR, and use some things like, "Oh, I can't believe he, did this or acted this way. Why did he do that? I bet it was because he." Okay, so you can get some of that language out there and encourage your students to use that as well. And then, of course, summarizing, something that we're working on constantly all year, using that CPR. Characters problem resolution is a great